Welcome to the Beginner's Guide for Armored Core 6. By the end of this video, you'll understand what it means to play Armored Core at a higher level. You'll be faster at the controls, you'll know how to put together a powerful AC, and you'll be able to quickly read and adapt to any situation. Feel free to skip ahead to a section that you're more interested in, but for now, let's get started at the beginning. First, let's get to grips with the controls. This guide will assume that you're using the default Type A control assignment with a controller, but mouse and keyboard can be an effective means of control as well. If you're playing on PC, be sure to open up the settings menu and scroll down to input device settings, where you can ensure that your button prompts are being properly displayed for the input you're using. And while you're here in the settings, I also like to go into the camera settings and turn camera speed to 10. That's because turning quickly to face enemies is very important in Armored Core, as you'll soon learn. So you've just crash landed on Rubicon, and your AC has taken damage. Its AP, which stands for armor points, can be viewed here. To instantly repair your AC, press up on the D-pad. This consumes a repair charge, seen here, which instantly heals your AC for a flat 4000 AP. The bar underneath shows the delay before you can repair your AC again, and it's important to note that you can't repair your AC while firing your weaponry. Be sure to keep your AC topped up on health, especially if you think an enemy is capable of extremely damaging attacks, which many of them are. If you think enemies might be nearby, you can press down on the D-pad to scan your environment. Again, the bar below shows how often you can use this. So there's no enemies nearby, but if there was, you could fire at them with any of one of your 4 weapon slots. Right now we're equipped with an assault rifle in our right hand, a missile launcher on our right shoulder, and a laser blade on our left arm. Your back triggers activate your left and right arm weapons, and your front bumpers activate your left and right back weapons. Note how your total ammunition depletes in the bottom right of the screen, and how your current magazine capacity is affected here, around your lock-on. Let's get moving. So, when at a standstill, your glide boosters are disengaged and you can walk. However, you'll often want to press circle or B to manually engage your boosters while grounded, as that is a superior form of movement, especially in combat. Note that these glide boosters automatically toggle on when you quick boost as well. The indicator for glide boosting is seen here. We'll need to ascend to reach our objective marker, which is shown here. Pressing X or A while grounded will cause you to jump with your leg part, and after that jump, holding X or A will cause you to ascend with your boosters. Ascending requires energy, which is being depleted here. Energy consumption is paused while descending, and your energy recovers really rapidly while you're grounded. If you fully deplete your energy bar, it will go red, and energy will not recover for a short duration, so you should generally try to avoid fully depleting your energy bar if possible. In the heat of combat, keep an ear out for warning sounds as well. The warning for loss of energy is just one sound that can give you crucial information. Now let's fight some enemies. In this game, lock-on is automatic when you're in range, and the enemy closest to the center of your screen will be locked onto. By moving the camera, you can target other enemies by aligning them more closely with the center of your screen. This method of targeting is particularly useful when taking out multiple enemies, as you might want some to have priority over others. Our assault rifle is on our right arm, so we fire it with R2 and take them out. However, in many cases, you might prefer a more automatic hard lock, and for this, you can enable target assist by pressing R3. In this mode, 4 crescents appear here, and now when an enemy is in your sights, you'll be hard locked onto them. In this state, your tracking accuracy is slightly reduced, so your shots might not hit your target as effectively as if you didn't have target assist on. However, this way your enemy is kept in your sights at all times, and you don't need to touch the thumbstick at all, really. This is particularly useful when you're fighting against a single difficult enemy, especially if that enemy has dangerous attacks that require you to focus on dodging and flight instead. One thing to note in the center of our lock-on is this yellow crescent. That's your missile marker, and the number represents how many missiles are chambered and ready to be fired at this enemy. Only try and fire your missiles once the yellow bar has fully loaded, like this. When the number appears, you're fully locked on. And while you can fire the missiles before this, they won't track very well at all. Our missiles are attached to our right back, so the marker appears in the top right and we can press R1 to fire them. But if you're against multiple enemies, you might not want to fire all your missiles at just one enemy. Instead, what you can do is hold down the fire button, like this. This will acquire a multi-lock and split your missiles evenly to all enemies within your field of view. Lastly, our starter build is equipped with a laser blade on its left hand. This means we can tap L2 to swing it and it will boost us towards any locked enemy as far as our energy will allow. All melee weapons can have their input held for a charge attack, and this one in particular can be swung twice if L2 is pressed in succession. After attacks, the blade also overheats, meaning it can't be used for a short period of time. For every encounter, you should be finding a way to maximize efficient use of every weapon you have equipped. With this build, we use multi-lock missiles to initiate. We fire the assault rifle when we're in range, and we use the blade whenever we spy a safe opening. So we've just finished a fight, and our assault rifle is low on ammo. Many weapons only reload automatically when their magazines are empty, so you should make a habit of manually reloading to ensure that you're topped up between fights. Manual reloads can be done by holding down triangle or Y and tapping the fire button for the weapon that you want to reload. Let's head down to the city. This is called an assault boost. You perform this by pressing L3 and it propels you towards wherever you're aiming. Pull back on the left stick to cancel the assault boost like this, or tap the ascend button, X or A, to cancel your boost while maintaining your forward momentum, like this. Assault boosts are by far the most efficient way to move around the map. However, where this ability really excels is in combat. Assault boost is just an excellent tool for closing the gap towards enemies. And if you have the energy to spare, you can even dodge left or right during it by tapping the left analog stick, like this. But what makes Assault Boost truly powerful is that you can attack as you Assault Boost, and many attacks done during this time deal increased impact damage, meaning they'll be more effective at breaking enemy guards. What's more, impact you receive during this time is also lessened, meaning you can assault boost into many enemies with reckless abandon. So let's show this off against the next two enemies who have shields. By combining our assault boost with a blade attack, we can absolutely obliterate them. But let's keep the second one alive for now. See the 2 meters above the enemy? This one shows the enemy's health, and the second one shows the enemy's ACS strain. ACS strain builds up orange, like this, whenever you attack, and when the bar fills fully, the enemy's guard is broken. In this state of ACS overload, enemies take direct damage, which means any attack you unleash in this moment is far more damaging to the enemy's health. Naturally, enemies can do impact damage to you as well, and your ACS strain will build up here, above your energy bar. If an enemy attack breaks your guard, your AC will pause, like this, and you'll take additional damage as well. To ensure that this doesn't happen, you should try and maneuver for extended periods where you don't take any damage. After a few seconds of no damage, ACS strain will diminish, and this is where the environment often comes in handy. It's something you can use to block attacks, giving you time to reduce ACS strain and often to reload as well. But notice how my assault rifle isn't doing much impact damage to this shielded enemy. That's because some weapons are better at building up impact than others. If I use my explosive missiles or my blade, for example, then I can easily break the guard of the target. The first true test of your skills will be this, the AH-12HC helicopter. In this fight you'll have to use everything you've learned, plus another skill as well, the quick boost. By tapping square or X, you'll be able to dash for additional avoidance. It's worth noting that in Armored Core there are no invincibility frames, however. So think of Quick Boost as a way to quickly get distance away from an enemy's attack rather than an ability that you use to dodge an enemy's attack. Quick Boost is particularly useful while Target Assist is enabled, because your thumb is free to tap the boost button, and I highly recommend putting Target Assist on while you're fighting most boss battles, because it's here that you're going to have to pay special attention to enemy movements and attacks. So, to recap, in this fight, I'm going to try and accomplish a few things. I'm going to use Target Assist to hard lock onto the enemy, and I'm going to constantly fire my assault rifle and missiles pretty much as soon as they're available. I'm also going to do my best to assault boost in and use my blade on cooldown. This is my main damage dealer in this fight. And when I return to the ground to recover energy, I'm going to do my best to stay close to the enemy. I'm safe when I'm close, and I'm safe when I'm underneath the enemy. But if the enemy has distance on me, I'm going to use the environment to my advantage. This is particularly useful when you see warning signs like this, or if you just need a moment to reload or repair or reposition. Coming up with a battle plan for bosses can really work wonders in this game, so with this, I should just naturally come out on top. Let's put this plan to the test.
Looks like they were on to you after all. Now, make a fight with the PCA. It doesn't matter. Take it out now, they won't have enough to ID you. You've got it now. Make it count, 621.
After the mission is complete, you'll obtain your reward, COAM credits, minus the ammunition and repair costs that were incurred during your successful mission attempt. After each mission, you'll return to this, the garage. Here, players can have some downtime and prepare for success in future missions. Right now, we've just finished mission 1. And the parts shop isn't open to us, so let's check out the sortie menu instead. Here you can and should do a few things. First, head to the training simulator. Here you can defeat some basic enemies and learn some invaluable lessons about the game. If you ever need to review these lessons, then you can always display the license menu in the garage by pressing triangle or Y, then navigate down to the tips screen. By completing training, you'll often be rewarded with powerful new parts for your AC, so I highly recommend completing new training missions as soon as they become available, and do your best to read all the information as well. If you want to quickly test out any of these new parts, then you can press the right bumper during assembly to initiate an AC test, or you can just head down into the AC test area from your sortie menu. Once you're here, press the pause button. It's in this menu that you can spawn a variety of enemies to practice against, without having to worry about incurring costs from going out on missions. You can also switch out parts in assembly and they'll appear here on your AC immediately. You can even restock your ammunition and heal up if needed. AC testing is an incredible tool. However, in many cases, it might be beneficial for you to just go out on actual missions instead and test out your weapons in the field. For this purpose, there's the Replay Missions option. If you're confident in your abilities, then by replaying missions, you stand to gain additional credits or a higher rank as well. And what's more, some missions have optional objectives or parts within them, so go out there, get some more practice, earn some more credits, and see what you can find. But when you feel ready, you can sortie onto your next mission and progress in the game. Oftentimes you'll have a choice of mission, and you might want to read the mission descriptions and evaluate how many credits are on offer as well, because you'll need those credits soon enough, because after mission 2, the parts shop becomes available. Here you can buy new parts or sell your old parts, and as you complete more missions, new parts will quickly become available in the shop. Your available credits can be seen here, the price of parts can be seen here, and buying parts will show you a reduction of your available funds. But the most important takeaway is this: don't be afraid of buying new parts and experimenting here. It's absolutely essential that you get a feel for different parts, and most importantly, parts can always be sold back to the shop for the same price you purchased them at, so nothing is ever really lost in this shopping process. Soon we'll go over the process of constructing an AC, but first I want to say that there's one more way to acquire AC parts, and that's through a process called log hunt. After Mission 3, you'll be able to participate in this log hunt program. This means that every time you defeat an enemy in a mission that is marked with this battle log icon, you'll gain progress towards your next hunter rank, at which point All Mind will reward you with new parts. Battle logs can either be bronze, silver, gold, or platinum, with each being worth more than the last. So keep a lookout for these markers in your missions, and if you do miss one, consider replaying that mission to claim it. Battle log status will be shown in your replay mission screen here and here, so if it ever says pending or the icon is grayed out, replay the mission, find that battle log, and complete the mission to claim it. Before long, you should start feeling a lot more confident in your piloting. For me, this happened around Mission 5, which was a short mission that required that I take out a Dafeng student pilot. This mission was over fast, it wasn't too hard, and it netted me a lot of credits, so I replayed this over and over for a while. These frantic AC fights are great practice, so if you're struggling, I highly recommend you replay this mission. Challenge yourself to destroy the enemy AC as quickly as possible, claim your credits, go out and buy a new part to test, and then go back in and take out the enemy AC again. If you get an S rank, you are doing really well in this mission. Before long, you'll be feeling much more confident with the flow of the game, and after a few more missions, you'll have enough credits to refine your AC into something that you want to pilot. And that process of refining a build is a huge part of the joy in Armored Core. There's a special sort of satisfaction that comes with putting together builds to perfectly suit your needs. So let's head into AC design and break down that process. As we go through the process of AC design, remember, you'll rarely find parts that are objectively better than others in every way. Instead, parts are balanced by being strong in some areas and weaker in others. If a stat is blue, that means that stat is an improvement over the stat of the part that you currently have equipped in that slot. If it's red, then that stat is a downgrade. It's up to you to decide what stats you value the most for your build, and that's what makes this build process so fun and personal. 12 parts make up an AC's assembly: 4 unit parts, 4 frame parts, 3 inner parts, and an expansion slot. When you arrive in the AC design screen, you can cycle through these 12 categories horizontally with your left and right bumpers, and in the column below, you'll be able to select the specific part that you'd like to equip from that category. Each part has a name, seen here, a weapon class, like handgun or bazooka, seen here, and a written description that tells you a bit about the weapon. Descriptions are often great at describing what's unique about a weapon at a glance, without you needing to go deeper into stats to figure it out. For example, this bazooka description tells us that it deals heavy impact damage, and if we go back into the part specs section, we can confirm that. This number is in blue and has an upwards arrow, signifying that this weapon indeed does do a lot more impact damage than the assault rifle we currently have equipped. What we currently have equipped is actually all the way down at the lower end of the impact scale, as shown by this little grey marker. These 5 specs are the simplified specs of each part. If you want to look at each part's detailed specs, you can press triangle or Y for an expanded list. And if you need any help figuring out what all these specs do, then you can press the help button, select contextual help, and then cycle through for a more detailed description of each spec. If this expanded stat screen is overwhelming to you, don't worry too much. Beginners can absolutely get by with just the simplified stat screen, so for now, let's go back to that simplified view. Almost all parts have 2 specs in common. They all have a weight, and they all have an EN load. The combined weight and EN load total of all your currently equipped parts can be seen on the right here. in a section that shows your AC's combined spec total. Again, you can toggle an expanded view of this if you like, but the simplified version is more than enough for now. And even then, what you'll really want to keep an eye on the most is your current load and your current EN load. This little grey marker shows what your current load is at. This red or blue bar shows how the currently selected part will affect your current load, and the grey marker with an arrow shows the maximum load your AC can handle. We'll talk about weight limit a little bit later, but for now, just remember that you generally do not want to ever go beyond this arrowed marker. Weight and EN load are the two limiting factors that help to offset the strength of parts. If a part is heavier, with a high EN load, that means the part will generally be more powerful, but it also means that it will be more difficult for your AC to carry it. If a part is light, with a low EN load, then the part might be somewhat weaker, but your AC will more easily be able to equip it. The power and utility of each part are expressed by the main specs situated above their weight and EN load. For weapons, these specs are typically attack power, impact, and total rounds. Attack power determines the damage-dealing performance of each projectile. Essentially, it's how much damage you can do to an enemy's health bar. Impact determines the damage that you do to an enemy's ACS strain. The higher your impact, the more easily you'll be able to stagger an enemy and open them up to direct damage. Total rounds are simply the total amount of ammunition that you're bringing into a mission with that weapon. This can be relevant, as if you run out of ammunition, you'll no longer be able to fire the weapon. Instead, the depleted weapon will be purged from your AC, and you'll be forced to fight with your fists instead, which can still work. In addition to these specs, weapon parts also have some icons that tell you more about the weapon at a glance. For example, the fourth slot will tell you if this weapon affects a particular part of the enemy craft. The napalm launcher, for example, can inflict a status effect that will cause the enemy to be staggered more easily. The third icon represents whether a weapon is single shot or whether it needs to be reloaded, or if it doesn't need to be reloaded and will overheat instead. If a weapon can overheat, the progress towards overheat can be seen accumulating here, around your lock-on. If possible, keep an eye on this bar and space out your shots to allow your weapon to cool. This will avoid putting your weapon into an overheat state. If a weapon is in an overheat state, then you can't fire it and you just have to wait for it to cool down. And the second icon corresponds to the type of weapon, seen up here as well, and the first icon tells you the damage type of the weapon. So there are three types of damage that your weapons can deal in Armored Core 6: kinetic, energy, and explosive. First, let's talk kinetic damage. This is damage done with physical projectiles, most common in weapons like the assault rifle, the machine gun, or shotguns. Kinetic weapons are typically better at close or medium range. They typically fire quite fast, and they generally also have a higher direct hit adjustment spec on average, which means they're a great option for dealing damage while an enemy is staggered. The second type of damage is energy damage. This is further split into three more types: laser, plasma, and pulse. Laser weapons fire straight blue beams, plasma weapons are purple and create an AoE explosion on impact, and pulse weaponry fire bubble beams that are great at wearing down pulse defenses. On average though, energy weapons fire slowly and are typically better at long range with high attack power but low impact, so use these to capitalize on an enemy's broken guard. Don't always rely on them to break it. The third type of damage is explosive damage, typically dealt by bazookas, grenades, and missiles. Explosive projectiles often deal the same amount of damage regardless of range, and often create an AoE explosion to boot. What's more, weapons with explosive damage have high impact and attack power specs. However, this is offset by slow firing rates and a lot of recoil. They're a great tool to have for breaking open enemy guards though, and most builds are well served by having at least one explosive weapon equipped. So those are the three types of damage, but naturally there are three types of defense as well. If you're stuck on a boss or enemies, consider what their defensive stats or weaknesses might be and experiment with different types of weapons. Before I move on from weapons, I'd like to mention melee weapons and pulse shields as well. Melee weapons can only be equipped to the left arm slot, and pulse shields can only be equipped to the left back slot. We've talked about melee weapons already, but note that they have a main spec called consecutive hits, which lets you know how many times the melee weapon can strike with repeated taps of L2. As for pulse shields, I probably wouldn't recommend them for a beginner, as using them properly requires quite a bit of timing and finesse. That said, if you do want to equip one, note that their main specs are damage mitigation, impact dampening, and deployment range. Damage mitigation is essentially the percentage of damage that the shield will block while it's active. Impact dampening is a mechanic that determines your initial guard window. When shields are deployed, there's this little brief moment where you can block more incoming damage, so blocks should be timed ideally to correspond with incoming attacks. But be aware that this will overheat your shield more quickly, so you can't just repeatedly tap it too many times. Lastly, deployment range is a value that determines the size of your shield. Next, we have the 4 frame parts of the AC. Let's start with the head. Head parts are unique in that they determine the power and range of your scan function, but beyond that, their main specs are AP, attitude stability, and system recovery. AP are your armor points, your health basically. Attitude stability contributes towards the maximum amount of stagger damage that you can absorb, so a higher value means it'll be harder for an enemy to strain your attitude control system and knock you off balance. And finally, system recovery determines how fast you will recover from status effects inflicted by things like fire or electricity. Next, the core part. This is the part that will typically contribute the most AP and attitude to your build. It's also typically the heaviest. Uniquely though, the core part also has a stat called Generator Output Adjust, which is a value that determines how effective your generator part will be at fulfilling your energy needs. But we'll get into energy and generators a little bit later. And then there are the arms. Arms give AP, of course, but the unique specs determine your arm load limits and your level of firearm specialization. Arm load limits can come into play when your arms are carrying extremely heavy weaponry. If you're holding weapons that are too heavy, you'll get this warning on the right, which means you'll need to equip lighter weaponry or choose arms with a heavier load limit. Finally, there's firearm specialization, which improves target tracking performance. If you find your shots are missing your target a lot, consider selecting arm parts that have higher firearm specialization. Finally, and most importantly, we have the leg part, and this might just be the most important part in your AC's entire assembly. Let me explain. So, leg parts contribute AP and attitude stability like all your other frame parts, but they're unique in that they are responsible for carrying the combined weight of everything else on your AC. Thus, their most defining spec is this, their load limit. This value changes this arrowed marker over here, which determines the maximum weight you can carry, and it's the marker that you never want to exceed when building your AC. Generally, the closer you can get your AC to this load limit, the better, though I will point out that the further back you go from this marker, the lighter your AC will be, and it will grant a slight increase to your boost speed as a result. But the really unique thing about legs is up here, and that's their type. There are 4 types of leg: bipedal, reverse jointed, quadruped legs, and tank treads. Each come in heavy or light variants, but it's the type of leg you choose that plays a massive part in how your AC will control. Biped legs are your jack of all trades. They're certainly a safe bet for new players, and they're all you have access to at the beginning of the game. Before long though, you'll unlock these, reverse joints. Reverse joints are still bipedal legs, but they're unique in that they have unparalleled jumping abilities. In gameplay, this means that your jump will propel you further into the air, and it also means that your quick boost will fling you further to the side while you're grounded. Consider reverse joints if you need to be more airborne or more evasive, but note that you'll generally be more easy to knock off balance if you're ever hit with these legs. One of the drawbacks to all bipedal legs is that they don't absorb recoil whenever you fire heavy weaponry or burst weaponry. Notice how I'm pausing in the air when I fire these sorts of weapons? That's because of my biped legs, and while it's absolutely still viable to use weapons like these with biped legs, this pause can definitely get you destroyed if you fire at the wrong moment. However, that recoil is not as impactful with the other two classes of leg, which are quadruped and tank treads. Quadruped and tank treads can absorb recoil from heavy or burst weaponry, allowing you to fire them while you're moving, though it's worth noting that quads do slow down slightly while firing, while tanks are uninhibited completely. This ability to hover is what sets quadrupeds apart from tank treads. Once you're airborne, all you need to do is press the jump button again with X or A to hover in the air. Pressing jump a third time will drop you out of this mode. While you're in it, you can still dodge and fire your weaponry, though you are slow, and you'll need to return to the ground to make substantial energy gains. The biggest advantage of flying like this is for maintaining additional range from enemies, and just in the fact that it often gives you a straight line of sight at enemies without any environmental clutter getting in your way. It's also amazing against certain enemies that don't have attacks that can reach you, so consider keeping a set of quadruped legs on hand in case you need them. They can be a really powerful situational tool to have at your disposal thanks to their hover ability. With tank treads, on the other hand, your booster part is actually removed from your AC assembly entirely, as the tank treads come with their own inbuilt boosters. With some exceptions, flight isn't typically a strong point of most tank treads. Tank treads are more about grounded movement, and operating these really feels like driving a wheeled vehicle, where the direction you're facing really matters. That said, you can still quick boost while grounded, which will instantly change your direction if needed and propel you into a temporary drift state. Slower treads will also benefit from making frequent use of the assault boost ability to cover distance. At the end of the day though, tank treads are really designed to carry an enormous load, and it's generally a good idea to load your tank with the most devastating weaponry and the most resilient frame parts you can carry. The next three parts for your AC are its inside parts, which consist of the booster, the FCS, and the generator. Booster parts are most defined by their thrust, their upward thrust, and their quick boost thrust specs. Your basic thrust value is what determines your default speed while gliding and flying. An AC with a high default speed will naturally be quite avoidant without you needing to take any particularly evasive maneuvers, which you might consider useful if you want to focus on things other than dodging. Your upward thrust is exactly what it sounds like. This value determines how powerful your upward trajectory will be. Being in the air can help you to avoid explosions on the ground, and it also allows you to get a better angle on your enemies, so consider this spec especially relevant for certain encounters. And then there's your quick boost thrust, which determines how fast your thrust will be when your quick boost is activated. This expanded view actually shows a lot more quick boost values that you should also consider, but generally you should only select for quick boost thrust if you find yourself facing an enemy that you think requires a lot of manual dodging. Another important stat is hidden in the expanded stat screen, and that's quick boost reload ideal weight spec. If your total weight rises above this value, your AC will have its quick boost reload time progressively penalized. Quick boosts and flight require energy, so naturally we should talk about the generator next, because it's this part that determines the nature of your energy bar. A generator's main specs are its EN capacity, its EN recharge, and its supply recovery. EN capacity simply determines the maximum amount of energy in your energy bar. An AC with a higher EN capacity will be able to perform more actions before this bar is depleted. However, it's also important to take into account your EN recharge rate, as this determines how quickly your energy will recover. An AC with a high recharge rate will be able to spend less time recovering and more time doing actions. Then there's supply recovery, which determines how quickly your generator will recover if you fully deplete your energy bar. Ideally, you'll never fully deplete your energy bar, but sometimes that's necessary to avoid attacks, and high supply recovery will get you back to the action without being punished too hard. Finally, unlike every other part, the generator doesn't actually have an EN load, it has an EN output. So it's the generator that's responsible for supporting the EN load of the rest of your system. Your total EN load can be seen here on the right, and the grey marker represents the combined EN load of all your currently equipped parts. That red or blue bar determines how that EN load will change depending on the part you have selected. And the arrowed marker is your maximum EN capacity, as defined by your generator's EN output stat. Basically, if you're exceeding your maximum EN load, you'll see red here, and that means you either need to switch to more energy efficient parts or choose a generator with a higher EN output. The last part we need to go over is the FCS part, which is the biggest contributor to your aiming accuracy. You might have noticed when you lock on to enemies, your aim is actually determined by this little reticle within the lock-on. When it's red, you're considered in range, and your non-homing projectiles should hit their mark. Keyword there though is should, because this little reticle isn't always on point. Sometimes it will waver, sometimes it will lag behind, and it's this behavior that is determined by the FCS part. FCS parts have three main specs. They're close range assist, medium range assist, and long range assist. Close range assist determines how good your reticle will be at tracking enemies within the 130 meter range. Medium range determines how good tracking will be between 130 and 260 meters, and long range determines how good tracking will be beyond 260 meters. Pay special attention to distance markers during combat, and try to stay within the optimal range for your FCS and your weapon. Missile tracking is separate from the FCS, but the FCS does determine how fast you can acquire a missile lock and how fast your multi-lock capabilities are, so this is a factor to consider for your build. And that's the basics of everything in your assembly. And if it sounds like a lot, well, you're not wrong, but rest assured that it will start to make sense as you jump in and experiment with things. So let's try and put together a unique build now. And while yours might be different from this build, I'll show you the order that I generally prefer to put things together. One of the most straightforward ways to get started with a build is to first decide on which FCS part you should use. That's because this forces you to decide early whether you want to build something for close, medium, or long range, or whether you want something that's just decent at every range. Having an idea in mind helps when getting started, so let's aim for a close range build and choose a close range part. The FCS I want to go for is this, the FCS G2-P10 SLT. It has good performance at close to medium range, and it comes with the added benefit of quick missile lock time, which is great as we'll be using missiles as well. So next, let's choose a good close range arm weapon to suit our FCS. Expanded spec screens reveal optimal ranges for firing each weapon, and the one for the MG-014 Ludlow reveals that it's a great close range option. So let's equip two of them, one for each arm. What we're using now is called a double trigger build, meaning you'll be dual firing these machine guns at once with both of your triggers. The Ludlow's description also specifically calls out that it's great in dual trigger builds. This is why reading descriptions can be so useful. As mentioned before, the description on our FCS revealed that it's principally designed to reduce missile lock time, which means that our missiles will also be a very effective tool, so let's equip two sets of those on our back, and all of a sudden we have a build that is deadly at close range and with long range missiles as well. Looking good. The next decision I like to make is legs. You have to ask what would suit a close range build. Well, you could go light and avoid taking damage entirely, but as a beginner, you're probably going to get hit a lot anyway, so might as well go with something heavy for now. Let's go with the Tiancheng bipedal legs, as these give us a high load limit to play with while we select our other parts. Having a high load limit makes it so much easier to put together an AC. I can confidently select heavier parts now, and by intentionally selecting 4 heavy weights, I can kind of just trust that the other specs will naturally be quite good. Another way to quickly put together a build is to buy parts that just exist within a family of parts. Most parts will have keywords like VP or Melander, as well as a company logo that can help you ascertain the family of parts that they exist within. For example, buying all of Schneider's Nachtreihe parts will make your build very fast and great in the air, whereas buying all of Dafang's Tiancheng parts will naturally make you slower but very tanky. So by buying all of the parts in a family, you can easily get a good idea of the type of AC those parts are moving you towards. And while you're definitely encouraged to mix and match, buying all the parts in the family is kind of a guarantee that they'll work well together, which might be a welcoming thing to many beginners. Because I've replayed Mission 5 so many times, I have over 1 million credits, so I'm going to use these to buy every frame part in Dafang's heavyweight family of parts. If you don't have enough credits here, consider replaying missions or selling parts that you don't need. And if you can't afford the same parts that I'm buying, don't worry. Consider parts to be a goal to work towards, and just see if you can get by in the meantime. Next, let's choose boosters. Manually dodging with your quick boost can be a lot of extra input for a beginner, so let's just select for a high thrust stat instead. This will enable us to move at a high speed by default, and we should just naturally avoid a lot of attacks this way. Luckily, the BST-G2/PO4 is perfect for those needs. Next, I like to choose a generator. Now, generators can get pretty heavy, but since we have those high load-bearing legs, we might as well just choose the heaviest generator we can find. This generator, the Ling Tai, gives us a reduction in our EN capacity, but notice it's only a slight reduction. Considering the dramatic increase in our EN recharge and supply recovery, I'd say this is a very welcome trade-off. So in the end, you should have something like this, a close-range AC with an extremely high AP and defensive performance. But we're not done, because once you have a build, you should take a moment to review things. The most important thing to look at is your current load. A good goal is to try and get as close to your weight limit as possible without exceeding it, so if you have a ton of space free at this final stage, it means you might want to go back and put on some heavier parts. Alternatively, if you're nowhere near your load limit, you might want to go back to your leg selection and choose lighter, load-bearing legs, as that would confer benefits by bringing you closer to your weight limit. All that said, don't worry too much about being super close to your weight limit. Even though I have some space here, I'm happy with that too, because space means I'll be able to quickly switch to heavier weapons if the mission requires it, without changing any of my other parts, which is really convenient. Speaking of weight, consider expanding the stat screen on your booster here and check that your total weight doesn't exceed your ideal weight spec on your booster by too much. Again, the more you exceed this value, the slower you'll be able to quick boost repeatedly. Last, check your AC's maximum EN load. Like with weight, it's important to be under and as close to your ideal EN load as possible. If you feel like you've settled into a really optimal build, then it's often a great idea to head into the AC data screen. Here, you can name your AC and save this build for future use. This is a great way to get some personal attachment to the build that you're using, and also in a practical sense, having multiple builds on hand can help you to quickly adapt to different situations. You can also try and copy enemy AC presets over in this tab, as long as you have all their parts available. Finally, consider stockpiling a few backup parts before you go out into missions. This will allow you to switch up your assembly mid-mission, which can be extremely useful. Me, personally, I'm going to buy 2 bazookas, because you never know when you might need a bazooka or 2. The first mission that new players are kind of likely to get stuck on is this, Operation Wall Climber. So I'm going to use this mission to show off a few more advanced mechanics. Our first objective is to take out the Gatling guns over here. Now, while objective markers show you your goal, you don't always have to take the straight route to get there. For example, if we go straight there, we'll have to go through a battlefield and straight into Gatling gunfire, which is not the best idea. So instead, since our build is a little bit on the slower side, let's take the scenic route. The tank is still shooting us, but by listening for warning signs and staying in the air to avoid explosions on the ground, we can reduce the damage taken here. Next, we go over the ramparts, firing our weaponry on the way. Assault Boost keeps us fast enough and tanky enough to avoid the snipers aiming at us, and by tapping Ascend to end my Assault Boost, I can maintain momentum and quickly regain energy on the ground. By setting up a flanking run, I can take out the Gatling guns without having to stop.
Gatling cannons destroyed. The friendly...
Next, listen for warning sounds as you go through the city.
You take care of
These will
those.
basically tell you when you're at risk of getting hit. We can use the environment for cover, and even use our compass at the bottom here to locate any nearby enemies. There are quite a few enemy MTs in the city, but directional markers will let you know where an enemy has fired at you from. This marker lets me know that there's one coming up right behind me. Repair kits heal a flat 4000 AP. You should always try to use them after you've taken 4000 damage to make sure you get the full benefit from it, but it's also valuable to stay topped up so you don't have to heal in the middle of a fight instead. Our next objective is the Baus Tetrapod. It's hidden in a nook under the city. Let's get to it. There's the tetrapod, and because it's a single imposing enemy, it's probably a good idea to toggle on our target lock with R3 before we get started. When fighting enemies, it's important to keep in mind your weapon's effective range. This is something that you should try and memorize in the garage before heading into battle. Our weapon's effective range is 236 meters, so we should look at the distance marker and try to keep that in mind. Now, normally our weapon would be effective at this range, but against this enemy, it's not. That's because this enemy has very high defense. Therefore, our weapon is ricochet at range. Remember to keep an eye out for this ricochet notification while you play. If it appears, it means you'll do little to no damage, unless you get within your ideal range, at which point attack power is guaranteed without ricochets. For this weapon, our ideal range is 115 meters. Because my AC is slow and my weaponry is good in short bursts, I'm going to use the environment to my advantage here. By peeking around this corner whenever my missiles are up, I can build up ACS strain at range with no risk. And when the enemy comes close to me, that's great because my machine guns can take it to ACS breaking point without it posing any threat. When playing, consider your build's strengths and consider the enemy's weaknesses and come up with a plan. If that plan doesn't work, reassess your build or reassess your strategy. That's how you overcome difficulty in Armored Core. See the bottom right? That's where you'll be able to note that you've unlocked a checkpoint. We're done here, and we can proceed. But while we're here, we might as well take out the cannons that were pestering us on the wall. These are optional enemies, but every kill rewards us with credits in the bottom right. Therefore, destroying these cannons is well worth it if we have the time. Our objective marker tells us where to go now, but there are often other ways to your objective as well. For example, if we take this door above our objective marker, we can actually sneak inside and get an advantageous high position over our enemies. There's a marker here that denotes that they're unaware of us right now. Damage dealt to these enemies during this time will result in higher impact and ACS strain. The final boss of this mission is a tough one. It's the Juggernaut. The Juggernaut has armor that negates all damage from the front. Note the armor notification here. However, its sides, back, and top are vulnerable. So a build that has great generator capacity and high booster thrust speed will be able to maneuver in the air and get over the Juggernaut more effectively. Any build can beat the Juggernaut, but if you're using a build that has to return to the ground more often, then you might have a harder time. But if you fail during this mission, don't worry. The game's checkpoint system will instantly allow you to restart at difficult encounters. What's more, if you have the parts, then you can consider quickly switching up your build here by entering Assembly. Remember how I said my build has some extra load free? Well, I'm going to make use of that now, and I'm going to equip 2 heavy bazookas instead of my machine guns. These bazookas deal explosive damage, which will help me to stagger the Juggernaut much more effectively. The Juggernaut is a slow, large target, so the usual drawbacks of using bazookas don't really come into play here. Another thing to consider during this fight is whether you want to use target assist with R3 or not. It's true that yes, target assist is generally great if we're just facing one singular enemy, but there are absolutely exceptions to this rule. The Juggernaut is one of them. Target assist has a few drawbacks in this fight. For one, it forces you to move at an angle respective to the enemy. This is especially concerning if I try to assault boost towards the Juggernaut. Doing this while locked on means I'm assault boosting right into its front. That's not where I want to go. With target lock disabled, we're able to move more freely around the enemy. What's more, our assault boost is free to be aimed above or beside the Juggernaut, better enabling us to get around it. As an added incentive, playing without target lock actually increases the tracking strength of your lock-on, so our shots will find their target more often if we don't use target assist. Consider all of these things and your overall skill level when considering whether to use target lock in your missions. Shortly after Operation Wall Climber, 2 new menus will become available, the Arena and OS Tuning. The Arena is a ranked simulator where you can fight enemy AC. There's no healing or multiple enemies, just a fair one-on-one fight. Here you can climb in the ranks, and while we can only fight against F-rank opponents at this early stage of the game, more enemies will be unlocked as you progress in your missions. And the Arena is absolutely something you should be clearing as soon as new AC fights become available. Not only is this invaluable practice for some of the hardest fights in the game, not only are you rewarded with credits with no repair or ammunition costs, the most important thing is that you're also rewarded with a crucial resource, OST chips. OST chips are a resource that can be spent on various categorical upgrades for your AC. This is done in the OS Tuning menu, and once you're here, you'll be met with a series of upgrades. Some of the upgrades in these menus are intended for more experienced players. For example, few players will ever find they need to aim manually or to enter a mission while overburdened, so be careful not to waste your points on upgrades that you won't use. That said, you can recover your spent OST chips by pressing triangle or Y. This will cost you 4,000 credits for every OS upgrade you need to undo. But some upgrades here will make any player stronger, regardless of their skill level. While I'd recommend you read through and consider these yourself, let's go through each category now and pick out a few priorities. In terms of system unlocks, one that I'd absolutely recommend everyone unlock eventually is the kick function. With this enabled, you'll be able to do a melee slam at the end of your assault boost by pressing L3 once again. This is especially great while you're hard-locked onto an enemy with target assist, and it's the perfect capstone to an enemy who is almost guard broken because it saves you having to expend ammunition on breaking their guard, and it leaves your ammunition free to capitalize on their broken guard instead. Next, let's talk expansions. Once unlocked, expansions can be slotted into your AC's assembly. And while you can only equip one expansion at a time, you can invest into unlocking multiple charges of each expansion. However, note that unlocking multiple expansion charges is expensive, and there's a cooldown period after using an expansion charge. By default, expansions are activated by pressing L3 and triangle or Y simultaneously. However, you can switch these controls in the game settings here. Personally, I prefer Type B, which allows activation with L3 and R3, which is easy to remember. When you're just starting out, it is easy to forget to use your expansions, so if you're new to the game, then I'd actually recommend that you choose a passive expansion instead. For example, this is Terminal Armor. Once equipped, it's always active and will always keep you alive at 1 AP for a few more seconds in a situation where you would have been destroyed. This can give you valuable time to heal or just survive a little longer. I really can't overstate how useful passive upgrades are in an input-heavy game like Armored Core 6. After Terminal Armor, I'd recommend getting the early ranks of many passive upgrades. You can't go too wrong here, and by investing in passive upgrades, you can rest assured that your AC is becoming more powerful. And that concludes the guide. Thank you for watching. For more tips, lore, and secrets about Armored Core 6, consider subscribing to my channel. And other than that, good luck, everybody. Get to work.